me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello. Good afternoon, everybody. Time for another episode of Cello Chat. Today, I have as my guest Yeil Park. I'm very excited to visit with you, Yeil. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Tremendous, tremendous. Well, I always like to start with, it's just so interesting to hear how people got started on the cello in the first place. So
Mhm.
what got you started on the cello, and then can you walk through your musical education that got you to where you are now?
Well, okay, so I wish I had like a more inspiring way to start because like a lot of my friends and colleagues, like maybe they saw Yo-Yo Ma on
Right.
Sesame Street. For me, so like okay, so my mother, she's an elementary orchestra teacher based in Ames, Iowa, and I had a bunch of siblings who played violin. I initially wanted to play the violin, but okay, so my older brother, the first time he ever held the violin bow, he actually held it with a perfect bow grip. And so like he was extremely prodigious whereas when the first time I ever grabbed the violin bow, I pretty much like held it like a baseball club and went like this. My parents immediately like, no, the violin's not for him. So in fourth grade, that's like the standard age in Iowa where everybody starts. Okay, so my mom just asked me like, okay, so like would you rather work hard? No, would you rather be lazy? I'm like, oh, I'd rather be lazy. Like, so would you rather stand or would you rather sit? I'm like, oh, I'd much rather sit. So she's like, okay, you're gonna play the cello. So that's how I started.
That's funny.
And
And
honestly, initially I didn't love it at first because it was kind of like because it wasn't something that like I chose. So like especially in
mm,
my teenage years, I'm thinking like I'm gonna do something on my own. I'm gonna make these independent choices. Also, it's not like I practiced a whole lot back then. So like around the time I was in eighth grade, I'm like, I want to stop taking lessons. And my mom's like, okay, sure, sounds good. And then it's like the moment that I stopped taking lessons was actually around the moment when I realized like that was a dumb decision. I actually really like this. I I mean, because for some people, like you don't really know what you don't have until you don't have it. So then
yeah.
for me, after it was at that point, like, okay, I need to actually really consider like yeah, so at that point I was like, I really like the cello. So at that point, like my previous teacher already had a full studio, and then my mom recommended that like I started taking lessons from George Work, who's a professor at Iowa State,
Yeah.
and we really hit it off, and he was an extremely great teacher for me. So that I studied with him from eighth grade, and then I went to Iowa State University, where I continued to study with him, and then from that point on, I did my master's and doctorate at Arizona State University, and where I was like the teaching assistant for Professor Tom Landshut.
All right.
And mhm.
Yeah. So, and then let's, I definitely want to ask you about, well, actually, I'll do it in this order.
Mm.
So the teachers that you've had, because you've also had some lessons with Hans Jensen.
Mhm.
I know this is a big question. What of the teachings of these various
Mm.
teachers stay with you on a daily basis every time you pick up a cello?
Well, first from like Mr. Work, like he was extremely detail oriented and like he so like especially like or a thing that I appreciated was that like as I grew older, like from like high school and even as I got to college, he also like adapted his approach to how to teach me. It wasn't like the same kind of thing. So then one, it's like even when I pick up the cello, I'm not thinking about what I necessarily did yesterday or last week. I'm thinking about like making sure that I'm always making a committed musical decision, like each time I look at the thing on the page.
Nice.
Or so then, or like even if I'm doing, like the same mezzo forte crescendo to a pure forte, I'm trying to think like what crescendo feels honest to me today, and what feelings do I want to implement to make this successful, and it's just like being like extremely detail oriented is something that always picks up from me from George. From Hans was just like really picky about a lot of things. Actually, at that point, I was being too picky, and so like when I was studying with him at Meadowmount, he actually told me that I was trying to take myself too seriously. So like for those who don't know, like Meadowmount is a 7 week camp. It's like a practice camp, and like most people practice they're like 5 to 7 hours a day, and like he actually told me that like I had to have a cap on my practice time. It's like you need to actually practice efficiently, but you need to also like accept the results of what you did that day. But you can't. So like, and then also I was just like, I was at that point practicing way too slow with the metronome, and
Mm.
and like literally going one click at a time.
Mm.
And then he's like, no. And then like he took my metronome, like he like moved up to like 15, 20. And he's like, think about what you did, process it, analyze it, and then try it again. And but he was just like, but then at the same time he was just like, oh, you're taking yourself too seriously, so you gotta let go. Just so then it's like that's what sticks with me too now. Every time I pick up the cello. And then with and then and then with Professor Landshut, he always just I don't know how to describe it. He just got me to like really loosen up and like not make like forced musical expressions because I mean, it's good to have like like musical concepts, but sometimes I was like trying to force a musical expression to happen, and he just kind of let me gain freedom
Excellent.
from it all. So,
All right. All right. That's funny about the practicing too much or having time to accept one's
mhm,
one's results, one's progress.
mhm,
The various books that have written about, people who have written articles or
mhm,
books about mental practice is part of
mhm,
that, can be part of that processing of your current state of playing
mhm,
and like allowing whatever changes of attitudes towards the music or habits to really sink in intentionally.
mhm, mhm.
Is that the sort of thing that he was recommending instead?
Oh, is this for Professor Landshut or for
Hans.
Hans? No, he just told me I was overthinking things. He just told me to
Okay.
do it.
All right.
It
Okay. Fair
actually
enough.
helped me a lot.
Okay.
Or like I
Excellent.
remember like a specific thing was I used to struggle a lot with vibrato, especially in the higher positions. And like I was like trying to seek like different pedagogical standpoints from a bunch of different people, like thumb up, thumb down, how
Uh-huh.
do you right? And that particular summer, because Hans was busy, he taught a lot of people in group settings,
Mm.
which actually was really great for me, just like seeing how he taught different students differently.
Yeah.
Or like seeing some students have like extremely similar problems as mine, and just like seeing it from a different from a third party
Right.
perspective was extremely illuminating. So like I thought he shared something really great, and I wanted to try to write it down. And I'm like, oh my God, like Mr. Jensen. So like, how did you do? And then he's like, you put your thumb in here, you put your thumb in here, you go like this, you clean your ears out, and you and like, and you hear yourself. I'm like, huh? And then I tried it, and suddenly my vibrato was like it was actually not like a genuine like a pedagogue. He just basically told me to like loosen up, like not take myself too seriously, and just do it.
That's funny. He has a good sense
Yeah.
of humor.
Mm-hmm.
He's our guest at our next cello day this coming
Mm.
May. Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
always fun to cross paths with him. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see. You did some research at Arizona State on
Mm-hmm.
not I mean it was on Skype lessons
And I
Hmm.
think by now we realize that, Zoom lessons and everything are a thing and they're here to stay. But you did some
Hmm.
quantitative studies. Can you talk about
Yes.
that a bit?
Yes, because well, like how the study first started was like anytime I was back home for the summer, I used to teach some of my mom's students private lessons, and a lot of them just like really enjoyed it. And then I remember like a few of my students back then in Iowa would be like, "I wish you were here in Iowa all the time so I could study with you," or like I wish we could keep on studying with you. And then I was just thinking at the time, well, I know Richard Aaron teaches a bunch of students online, especially back then when he was in both Ann Arbor and at Juilliard. So I was, and then also like Hans also teaches a lot of students online too. I'm like, wait a minute, so why can't I? And then when I got to my doctorate, I started looking at a lot more scholarships and articles, and just was extremely disappointed by. I mean, a lot of things were just they're just based on anecdotal
Yeah.
evidence. And I was like, like some people just say like, it's great, and some people saying it's not great. I'm like, maybe someone should find some attempt to like put it like,
Do a study. Yeah.
yeah, or like do something more stats based. And then like the one stat based study I saw had, I think it was six trombone students at three lessons.
Hmm.
And I said, that's really lacking. And around the same time, I had a friend colleague who was teaching at a small town in Iowa, where the only cello teacher is also the middle school orchestra director. So I was having this conversation with him. He's like, you should just teach my students. So I taught 22 high school students from Muscatine, Iowa, for a full semester, and then like had them all like fill out surveys on it was on a Survey Monkey,
Uh-huh.
like a 1 to 5 rating on video quality, audio quality, internet quality, and like their perception of the quality of lesson. And I had them do that for all throughout the semester. And then I also had 1 week where I came in person in order to give them all lessons.
What'd you find out?
Well, everybody enjoyed the lesson a lot more in person. Oh, so like that one was obvious, but also there was a dramatic shift in the quality of lessons after that one time I taught them in person, even when the internet was worse. So I think like having like a face-to-face interaction it did actually improve, but I don't have to study it with me off the top of my head, but the average lesson rating in person was it like a 4.9 or some out of 5. But then like the average of the lessons overall online, I think before was at like a 3.9 and after was like a 4.3. So it's like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's like for me it's like obviously like the lessons in person were better than the ones outside of it, but a lot of it was just because the internet at that school was incredibly bad.
Oh,
And they were using Chromebooks. And if you can get like like 80-85% level of a lesson quality, that's better than those kids not having lessons at all. So like especially in a smaller rural remote place, I think like instead of just like aiming for perfection, I think like even some level of outreach and some attempt at educating and looking out for kids is gonna be still fruitful.
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. So I want to also ask you about motivating students. I mean,
Hmm.
you sometimes, I think, particularly with non-majors, you'll get some
Hmm.
people who, oh, I love the cello. I'm so glad I play the cello. But then a day goes by, a couple days, then a week goes by where they're not practicing. And, you know,
Hmm.
guess what? They're not making progress. And so then it's not as fun, etc.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, particularly with aspects of your background where like your mom asking, okay, would you rather sit or stand, or
Hmm.
something, or even,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna give up the cello in eighth grade. There are ways in
Hmm.
which you can probably put yourself in their shoes, in their
Hmm.
situation. What are some of
Hmm.
the things that you do to help motivate them, inspire them to get out that instrument and keep playing and keep practicing?
Well, I'd say the first thing I try to do, like even before I get to that place, is just make sure that we're at the same point on a human level. Because if they're not practicing or if they're not motivated, I just want first I want them to know that like I know where they're at, or first like I try to understand like where they're at because I've had moments in time where I also didn't want to practice and and also like actually like stop playing cello for a bit. So it's so like I just want them to know that like they're not a bad human being, that I still like them as people and, and just like figuring out like what's going on in their lives. And like I had a student at the community college where I used to teach where her mother was having a lot of questions with her immigration status, for instance, and like that was causing a tremendous amount of stress. And I
Hmm.
said, so that we just like had like a long chat about that, and I just want, just like letting her know that I was here for her if she needed anything, and that like she wasn't like I was never going to punish her for because like she was going through like an excruciating life circumstance, and and then like once I get that level of trust, then I start to do things like, hey, like like is there something that makes you really happy, or like here's why I think like a C major scale is like a really noble and like happy sound, and then like we'll do some scales together, and then like we'll do some pieces together, and then it's like, but then like first and foremost, like yeah, I just want to make a connection on a human level. And then make sure that I'm also assigning things that are appropriate for where they are, both like on their cello journey, but also in their personal journey. So that it actually so that it feels related.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, all right. Well, thank you.
But on like a more like a pedagogical thing, I just try to make sure that it's a little different for each different students. For most of them, I try to make it fun. Like for instance, I also do a lot of marathon training. I do a lot of running, and a lot of a lot of music related things have also been related to like my progress as a runner. Like for instance, if you try to run too fast, too hard, too often, you're gonna get injured or just get burnt out. And also then like or like some mechanical things I've learned from running that like surprisingly also affects.
Yeah,
So like even if they don't relate to running at all, just like me being excited about it, like oh I get what you're trying to say.
nice.
And unfortunately, sometimes I'm also a very patient teacher, which means that so I had a student who was working on Popper 1, and he just clearly wasn't practicing it. And I just basically let him know, like, hey, listen, it's kind of on you. Like, if you want to move on past this stage, if you want to move on past this phrase, like, the thing is, I love Popper. I love working on this, even if we're doing the same thing in a row for like a few weeks. So, but if you're getting bored by this, then it's kind of on you. Like, I can't force you to move on to the next phrase. It's kind of on you. Like, I'm not the one playing the cello for you. You are. So
Yeah.
I have patience. I'm gonna play the long game. So what are you gonna do? And then eventually, then they started working hard. I don't want to play. I'm like, great.
That's funny. Okay, so Yale, you are both, I mean, like many people, you play
Hmm.
solo on the cello, but you also play a lot of orchestral playing and a lot of
Hmm.
chamber music playing. I wonder
Hmm.
if you would talk a little bit about what is orchestral playing to you as a cellist, and kind of like how does that benefit your cello playing overall? And then the same thing about chamber music playing.
Something that Professor Landshut mentioned to me, which also kind of like opened my eyes and also like shifted my perspective, is that he just like he told me one lesson. He's like, I don't personally think there's like a soloist or chamber musician or orchestral musician. I think you're either a good musician or not. I mean, obviously there are like subtle nuances. Obviously, like you're not gonna play like Misha Maisky in the back of a cello section. I mean, I love Misha Maisky, but like if you do that, like people around you are gonna get pretty upset. But then, well, apart from that, it's just like understanding that everyone's like trying to make some music together, and it's like understanding like what is the most appropriate expression and like how to make my sound fit when what's going on, or like how do I feel, or like how do I use my sound to fill this space.
Yeah, yeah. And then chamber music wise, I got to at least ask you about the Poulenc Sonata. I ran
Mm,
across video of yours on YouTube of one of the
mm,
movements of that Poulenc Sonata, which on the one
mm,
hand is a very beautiful sonata, but on the
yeah.
other hand is, just fiendishly written in terms of, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know. It's like if you were to look at an orchestration book as to how to write for the
Yeah.
cello, they're like,
Yeah.
hey, give time to switch from pizzicato to arco or to make
Hmm.
large shifts, and he doesn't do any of that.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, did you have any thoughts on either the Poulenc as a chamber piece or
Mm.
Poulenc-like pieces that where you have a ton of technique to navigate and you don't want the technique to get in the way of the musical message?
Well, I remember the first time I ever performed that piece, it was during my master's, and I don't remember how it went. All my friends and colleagues who were there, and even like Professor Landshut, apparently were mesmerized by it. But at that point, I was just so like, I'm like, especially in that last movement in
Oh, that's
particular, I just
crazy.
remember thinking like, I don't have room to like let my mind wander. Like, I gotta lock in. I gotta just focus. I remember like a friend of mine at the time was just like, apparently there was a kid in the audience that was running around during my. I'm like, huh? I had no idea. I was just like, please don't fall apart. Please don't fall. And then, but then like after that performance, like the second time I performed it, it was like a guest recital at Iowa State with a friend of mine. At that point, I was like having performed that piece once and like being comfortable just made it so much easier to make expression and just
Yeah,
have fun with it.
yeah.
Also, like a thing I really enjoy doing is I love to turn pages for my friends, the recitals.
Ah,
And so I just got really comfortable with that piece
mm,
because then like I'm also like hearing my friend play and I'm also looking at the score and it's kind of interactive.
yeah.
Also, like a funny thing, especially back then when people weren't using iPads, you know how that last movement has 5 pages? It's like a really awkward page turn.
Right, right.
So, like, I had to, it's happened a few times where I would walk, so I turned the pianist page, I had to immediately start walking towards the cellist, and I turned their page, and then walk back and sit down. And I'm like, okay, so like, this is that moment. I don't know. So I just, the fun piece, I like it.
All right. Yeah. I think that's true of a number of kind of what you're saying about the first time through is the real trial by fire and
Hmm.
to let oneself enjoy and get in the musical moment as much even on the first performance is a lot
Hmm.
trickier than on second or third or fourth.
Hmm.
Tchaikovsky variations, you've played those a
Yeah.
number of times as well, right?
Hmm.
It's the same sort of
Hmm.
thing. On the second and third and fourth, it's like, hey, this is a lot of fun. The first
Yeah.
time.
Scary. Uh-huh.
All right. All right. Yeah, good stuff. So, Yale, what upcoming performances, what projects do you have? What's in the works for the remainder of 2025?
For 2025, actually in a couple of weeks on October 14th, I'm doing a guest recital at Iowa State University.
Nice.
And then I think that week I'm also giving a master class, but like working with some students of Mr. Work. And and also that same weekend I'm also running a marathon. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good
But
luck
apart
with,
from oh, thank you.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, apart from that, I mean, so like right now, I'm living in Tucson. I'm subbing with the Tucson Symphony and still teaching and playing and whenever I can.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I know what you're talking about as far as when you do kind of almost any other skill with
Hmm.
intensity and trying to perfect it, you start to see parallels between them. The things that go
Hmm.
through you, the things you tell yourself about how to get to the next level with running, and you can't help but
Hmm.
think, wow, this is a lot like what I find myself thinking when I'm learning this piece or telling my students.
Hmm.
Um, Okay. Well, yeah, like I say, best of luck with all of those. And
Oh, thank you.
it's been a pleasure visiting with you and picking your brain and finding out your story, Yale.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I hope someday we get to meet in person.
Yeah, that would be great. It's
Hmm.
I know it's like they say it's a small world in the cello
Hmm.
community, but it's also large geographically. But
Hmm.
hopefully that will happen at some point. I look forward to that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again and best of luck to you and to all of you out there. Let's meet back this same time next Friday. Take care.
You had me at